both sides of the conversation family. We welcome you to this virtual space crafted especially for you. My name is Jada Curry, and I'm both sides of the conversation's marketing director and graphics design specialist. I want to take some time to ground us all as a community into this space we are about to open up in, so let's go through our community standards. Both sides of the conversation is providing a safe and honest space for open conversation, so we ask that you all be respectful of that. We also ask that you be respectful of each panelist, host, and participant. We do encourage healthy debates and conversations. Don't personalize anything with anyone. This includes name-calling, bullying, trolling, or shaming. This will not be allowed or tolerated. Your perspective is yours. It is not a prescription. You do not have to agree, but show respect. These community standards apply to all of our live shows and any virtual spaces that we hold on social media, including YouTube, Facebook, Twitter, or Instagram. We want to make sure that we are caring for each other as a community. This is our priority in all of our endeavors as both sides of the conversation. With that being said, I hope you enjoyed today's show and continue to stay in touch with us via YouTube, Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, or all of them. All right, thank you for listening and see you soon.
Hello, everybody. Welcome to Both Sides of the Conversation Live. We gather in this virtual space every Sunday at 2 p.m. I am one of your hosts, Brittany Doyle, and I would like to introduce you to my co-host and founder of this platform, John Henry.
Welcome, everybody. Thank you all for joining today for this Sunday's conversation. Should be a phenomenal conversation. Now we have some phenomenal educators that's going to come on and talk to the community about how do we get prepared as our young people start transitioning back to school, some of the tips, things that our community and parents should know about, and some of the things that they're looking for in this new school year. We know there's been an increase of the COVID virus. This Delta virus is definitely spreading faster. So we're definitely talking about some of that as well in today's conversation. But with that being said, I'm going to jump into a couple of community announcements today. Before we get started, I'll turn it back over to Brittany shortly. But just wanted to say, thanks to community out there. Yesterday, I was out in the community out in Oakland, supporting our Black and brown businesses. As you all know, here at Both Sides of the Conversation, that's what we're about, uplifting our community, making sure that our Black and brown community are supported through the financial dollars that is needed to impact these businesses. We all know during COVID, our businesses were hit the hardest, not only just the businesses, but people that was in the employment realm being laid off and fired. So we want to continue to do our part to make sure we bring those businesses here to our platform and make sure that we are getting that information out to community so community can get out and support them. As we know, we need those Black dollars to help lift those buildings. And by doing that, it's just about patronizing those businesses. So I was able to make a lot of connections. A lot of people out in the community was very excited about seeing me out there and supporting what they're doing. So just want to say thanks to all of the vendors, all of the businesses out there that are doing phenomenal stuff. I was able to get one of those born and raised in San Francisco shirts with my brother Old School Coop out there, man. That brother, phenomenal gem in the community. We'll be getting him on. And there were some phenomenal sisters that we were supporting their businesses as well. So it's just nice to be out in the community, a number of community events that we were able to be a part of yesterday. So just wanted to send a shout out to all of them. But before we get started, just want to give condolences out to my brother. Yesterday we lost my brother Ivan Montgomery. So I want to give a condolences out to him and his family. It's a tragic loss in our community, a brother that was, making the change, doing a lot of things to impact the community. And just getting that news yesterday really just brought my spirits down. And then I woke up this morning to more tragic news. One of my daughter's close friends was one of the young people who were shot and killed on Highway 4 this weekend in Concord. So my heart is just really up and down today, but just wanted to give a condolence out to her family as well, as this is going to be definitely impact to the community. And this continued uptick of gun violence in our community has just continued to plague us. and just want community to just stick together in solidarity, continue to pray for these families, continue to reach out to our young people as, they just need to hear the information. We got to keep loving on the community. We got to get these people to deal with some of their traumas, the mental health, some of the things that's impacting these people and these decisions and the substance abuse. Very, very important stuff. As we know, when these tragedies happen, it impacts our whole community. So again, the gun violence and impacted my close family today. And, my daughter is struggling with it. And that's just sometimes what happens. And we have to just make sure that community is aware of that. So just wanted to get that out there. Also wanted to talk about the Dixie Fire. It is spread throughout California. It is steady growing. There's been a number of other fires that are sparking up. So just want to make sure that community aware while you're out partying, barbecuing, having fun. Please be careful when sparks and different things like that could get out and start grass fires and create havoc for us. As we all know, here in California, we are dealing with a water shortage from the lack of rain and snowfall this season. So definitely we want to make sure that we do our part so that we don't continue to have these wildfires and different things that will impact our water usage, as well as information has been coming out from the state. They are really considering more and more communities putting under water restrictions. So we want to make sure that we protect our elders and the seniors of the community. So let's community do our part, stand in solidarity, be mindful of our water usage when it comes to showers, watering our gardens, washing our cars, and things of that nature. As this water shortage will impact our community, we want to make sure that our elders and the people who really need those services will be able to have those services. With that being said, want to put out there again, San Francisco Mayor London Breed is proposing to create an overdose response team. As you all know, San Francisco has been one of the cities that has been hit the hardest, or one of the hardest hit by the fentanyl overdose and drug overdose in the city. Substance abuse is real. It is happening. It is impacting our community. So our great Mayor London Breed is putting together a street overdose team to respond to some of the crisis when it comes to substance abuse. So thank you, London Breed, for making sure that happens. And community, we have to get behind it. We walk around the city, you see the drug abuse, we see what's going on in our community. Also, that same law will give paramedics the ability to impose mental health holds on some of these individuals. Before it was only police, but now they're going to consider putting the medical personnel the option to do those 5150 holds, because sometimes people get on those substances and become harmful to not only community but to themselves. So that's going to be something that's very important, and that's going to impact our community. The market watch at our farmer markets. There are about 100 farmer markets across the Bay Area. These centers are opening up. They're going to be taking all of the Cal Fresh and WIC participants. Please reach out. We'll be getting some of that information up on our social media out to the community. So please be looking. We want to support our Black farmers. We want to make sure that we buy locally and organically. As we know, there's food deserts all across the Bay Area and across this country when it comes to the Black and brown community. So we definitely want to be mindful of that. Lastly, there's been an increase. We already know in the Bay Area, we've been hit hard with these car break-ins. The other thing that's been happening is there's been an uptick and people stealing Cadillac converters off people's cars. But the robberies and the car break-ins had just really been increasing. So want community to be careful, be safe out there, especially to the ladies out there. I'm not sure if everybody's been paying attention. There's been a number of robberies that's been taking place with women in shopping malls as they're putting stuff in their trunks. People have been running up behind them, robbing them, and doing different things. So ladies and people of the community, please be safe out there as you shop. And I know we're getting close to the holidays, and it's only going to get worse with these financial issues that we are facing across this country. Gas is going out of the roof. Be careful. There's been a large amount of gas siphonage that's been happening. I don't know if it's impacted your community, but there's been a lot of people stealing gas out of people's cars because we know here in California, the gas is almost $5 a gallon. So people are starting to get impacted, and they're going to desperate needs to get the things that they need to get by. Lastly, we have our Hidden Gem segment coming up this Tuesday, where we will continue to highlight our Black and brown businesses. So please join us this Tuesday. We will continue to highlight those hidden gems in our community. And then this Thursday coming up, we will have financial freedom and legacy planning with Sandy and a couple of individuals from the community, as we will continue on our Educational Thursdays to make sure that our community gets the information that's needed And that's what we're going to do on that segment. And next Sunday, I know you guys seen on the PowerPoint as we started, we was going to have a conversation with our young people, the Black STEM educators, but that show is going to be rescheduled. We're going to be talking with next Sunday's conversation will be with the staff of San Francisco Juvenile Hall. So we'll be having some of the counselors, some of the probation, and different people from Juvenile Hall talking to community. So that's what next Sunday's conversation. And with that being said, I'm going to turn over to Brittany to go over today's information that's going to be helping us get through today's conversation. And then we're going to go ahead and introduce our panelists for today.
All right, thank you. As everyone knows, we have a great conversation lined up for everybody today, and we'll be talking about the different implementation efforts that are going in place to transition our kids back into school for the fall school year. And so we just wanted to make sure that everybody had like some foundational understanding of where we're at right now with the pandemic and just with our children going back to school. And so 93% of households with school-age children report some form of distance learning during COVID-19. So that's approximately 50 million students between K and 12. 80% of people living with children distance learning reported that children were using online resources. And about 20% of children were using like paper that was being sent home. Teachers said their students were less engaged during remote instruction than before the pandemic. In February of 2021, 61% of US adults felt that it was more likely students would fall behind academically without in-person instruction compared to 48% in July of 2020. During distance learning, Black and Latinx students and students from low-income families face more roadblocks to learning, driven in part by gaps in access to technology and the internet. The West Contra Costa Unified School District is offering an entirely new K-12 virtual academy for students and teachers who prefer distance learning. It will be offered to all district students beginning this fall. And some school districts are thinking of keeping distance learning as an option for students during future events that cause students to miss school. Such events as like wildfire, natural disaster, and snow. And even with what we went through, quarantine students as well. And so we did some research and we have some tips that will prepare students for going back to school. And these tips are continue to read and do academic activities throughout the summer to maintain what students learn during the school year. Take a tour of the school, meet with the teachers, and practice picking up and dropping off the students as a way to get your child prepared for going back to school. You can also celebrate your child by having a back to school party. You can also take first day of school pictures and encourage to have a positive outlook on the first day, because we understand that it can be a hard transition for some. These are some tips we have for students during the school year, and that's to develop a good night routine, such as setting bedtimes and reduce the amount of electronic usage during school days. Prepare for school the night before. Have your child organize their clothes for the entire week, and pick out some outfits, work with them to pick out their outfits on Sunday. Create a quiet space for your children to study inside of your home, away from TVs and other distractions. And you can also create a planner to keep all your meal plans, papers, and other school materials organized. So as you see, there's a lot of things that you can do during the summertime to help you, ease back into the routine of letting your kids, getting your kids to go back to school every day. So we have a great panel in store. As I call the panel's name, I would like for you all to take 2 to 3 minutes to introduce yourself and let us know a little bit about you and what you do for a living. And we are going to start with Julinda Ledee.
Hello, everyone. How are you doing today? My name is Julinda. I work at San Jose City College. I'm an articulation specialist, and that basically means that we create agreements with the CSU system so our students can transfer from that 2-year level to the 4-year level. I've been working in that position for the last 5 years, but I've been working at the community college level for the last 21 years. I am also a motivational speaker and an author, and I love doing presentations, and you can check me out. And if you need someone to present, just let me know.
Thank you so much. Next, we have Mildred Ward Hale.
Bro, you have to unmute, Mildred.
Hello, Good afternoon. I have been teaching at the San Francisco Unified School District for about 30 years. I'm a retired teacher at the Unified School District, and now I work at the New School San Francisco as a kinder teacher. When I was in the San Francisco Unified School District, I worked with students from pre-K all the way to high school, and I also work with students in special classes as well.
Thank you so much for joining us today, Mildred. And we also have Michael Essien.
Good afternoon. My name is Michael Essien. Currently, I am an administrator in San Francisco Unified School District. I'm a 30-year educator. I taught for 21 years in Oakland Public Schools in East Oakland and West Oakland. And for the last 9 years, I've been an administrator here in San Francisco Unified. And I'm also a consultant, an education consultant, where I work with school districts, leadership teams, organizations, teachers, parents, students to change outcomes in public schools. That's one of the things I love to do. So if you need somebody to come not only do a presentation to parents, students, or to a school site, or if you want to participate in some type of upcoming event or workshop, please follow me on my website. And you can also join my group, Facebook group, SEN Education Group. Love to hold a conversation about changing education. And thank you for allowing me to be here today.
Thank you so much.
Phenomenal. So since we have all of the guests here, we're going to just open up the conversation. Community had a lot of conversations and questions that they wanted to ask. I'll put the first question up there. Within a few weeks prior to school starting, what could community do to start helping prepare students for the new school year? So I would like to just open it up, and we could do it popcorn style. Whoever would like to jump in there. What can community do? You know, you all the educators, you all kind of have an understanding how that first week looks like, or how that preparedness look like. What information do you think is important for parents and for a community to know as we approach the start of the first day of school? Y'all want me to pick somebody? I'll start with you, Jalinda.
First things that I have mentioned before is that with the COVID and everything going on, we need to understand the policies that are happening within the different school districts, understand the rules and the regulations. And I know it can be difficult with the smaller children as well as with students with disabilities. So I'm going to say really understand what's going on your district and your campuses, so that way you're prepared and you have a good understanding, and you can talk to your youth or your student so they have a clear understanding what the rules are, so we can be respectful, especially with these different mask guidelines. I believe that's going to be difficult for the younger students and, again, the students with disabilities. So I'm going to say prepared by knowing what's going on in your district and knowing what's going on your college campus.
Definitely, that's going to be very important. And if you can share any resources, please do that in the chat. We'll make sure we get that information. As we know, here at both sides of the conversation, there's a lot of people from different counties. So each county, each school district could be different. But definitely the panelists that we have here, we'll make sure we get as many resources and ways to connect with the school up on the screen. With that being said, Brother Mike, you want to go on and talk about what community could do to get prepared for school?
Absolutely. So I appreciate this question. Like this is a powerful question, and what it states is that parents need to, or guardians need to have some information to prepare their children for school. I want to say this: every school throughout the state of California, they are now in the process of discussing what they're going to do to open up school. How are they going to re-engage kids? Because we've been on this distance learning platform now for a year plus. So a school is coming up with a strategy in how to engage kids, understanding that we've been out of school for a year plus, and building relationships is going to become very important. In order for you to assist your child, you need to ask the school to share with you what the plans are for when kids return to school, because once you know those plans, you know what to do to prepare your child. And each school site, and I'm here to tell you as a person who is a principal, we are going to be meeting August 11th to onboard the teachers around what we're going to be doing when kids come back in to support them, because we've been out for that time. Being able to have us share what we're going to do will allow you to prepare your child to learn.
Phenomenal information. Miss Mildred, you want to go in there and take the last shot at it?
Yes, that is a very important question. My suggestion to parents is that they develop a partnership with their schools, with the administrator there, with the child's teacher, to find out and stay in the loop what's going on, and also they can also have they have the right to put their input in as well. So the more that they build up that relationship between school and home, they have a better understanding what's actually going on in the school, and also to support their child academically is to prepare them to get their materials ready. There's a lot of sales going on at different like Staples and Target or what have you, to start getting the essential pencils and papers and staplers and all that together in folders. That would be a good way to also to get involved with the child. Just talk to the child about how they think the school should be, and what they expect, and what should happen, and how they should respond to different things in the school, and build response with other parents, and parents can get together and talk to each other and to support the learning not only at school but also at home as well.
Well, I think that's very, very important information. It's going to be a lot of that support needed. Community, we will be putting out a number of information to community on events that are coming up that's going to be giving free backpacks to our community. I know both sides of the conversation will be a part of several backpack giveaways here in San Francisco. But I think having the right utensils and information that's going to pencils and things of that nature is definitely going to be important. But before I swing into the next question, I want to go back to what Jalinda was talking about, this COVID, because I think that's an important thing that a lot of community people are trying to figure out with this COVID, especially with the numbers rising with this Delta variant. Due to the fact when COVID originally happened for this distance learning, a lot of school districts wasn't prepared for it. And I know that we're transitioning back into schools starting back up, but have the different from you all's perspective, being in the industry, have you seen the measures in place if we have to go back to a second lockdown? Are they ready for that? How prepared are they? And will that be an easier transition than before?
Well, I can honestly say from our college district, we are getting prepared for that. Most of our instructors are choosing to teach online just for their own safety and concerns. And, we have a lot of older teachers, and they're concerned about their health issues. So majority of our courses are being taught online. Our enrollment has been dropping, but that has been across the board. So, we don't feel some type of way, but we understand that now people have more choices. They can choose to go to any college that they want now because they can go online. So they can go to a more prestigious college if that's what they choose. So that could be a benefit for this online teaching. People have more options. But I will say that within our college district, people are getting more prepared to go back to fully online if needed. But again, they're willing to go, the administrators want to go back. They're ready to go face to face. They want to deal with the community. They want to work with the students. So, but the faculty have their concerns as well, and which are health issues.
So do you see hybrid models at the college level? I know, Michael and them could speak to the younger kids, but at the college level, are there more hybrid models now? Are they going to, even when schools start back and people are back in person, will they still have that hybrid model, or is that an option that's not on the table?
Well, we had hybrid model before COVID. So I will say that the faculty are more on online than the hybrid. Some are willing to come back, but to be honest with you, it's fear. It's just fear. People not knowing and not understanding what the future is going to come, what the consequences are from getting this disease. So people are really fearful right now. But as far as hybrid goes, that's something that we had always done. And that was something that's always been embraced. And I believe that we will increase hybrid as we go back. Before we go fully face to face.
And I know you probably don't have the answers, but is there a percentage that you're seeing of like staff that doesn't want to come back? I think a lot of industries are starting to be impacted because a lot of people feel and believe they can do the work remotely through Zoom and things of that nature. But is it a big pushback? Is it a large number of staff, or is it just a small percentage of people that's not willing to come back?
Well, as you know, working at the college level, we have unions. So the faculty union is pretty strong. And so our faculty in our district, they're choosing not to go back, and they were actually given the option. Now, staff, on the other hand, was not given the option, but they're willing to work with staff. But I'm going to say it's about 70-30. 70% want to stay remote, and about 30% are ready to go back face to face. And also, people miss that socialization. People want to socialize. People want to go out to lunch. People want to stand by the water cooler and, look at the grandbabies' pictures, So people are missing that connection as well. And I think that's really important to have that connection, whether it's, online or in person.
Wow. Phenomenal information. Mildred, you want to jump in there and talk from what you're seeing? Is it a big pushback from teachers coming back to work? Do you all have hybrid models, or you think the hybrid model will work for our K through 12 kids?
Well, at the school site where I'm at the charter school, we are preparing to come back in person. What we did last year from August to half of November, we was on Zoom. And it was on Zoom from 9 o'clock to 12:30, and then from November to the end of the school year in June, we came back in person. But we did have the option. We did have the hypermesh. Some kids stayed on Zoom, and most of the kids also came in person, and it worked really well. In person, we had our 6 feet distancing. We had the mask on the students, and we had a pass. Each classroom had a pass to go to certain bathrooms, and we had a certain. We ate in the classroom, and we also ate outside as well. And we kept the windows open, so we had ventilation. The ventilation was great. Parents was not allowed to come into the school because of they dropped them off at the school door and they picked them up at the school door, and it worked very, very well. We had a great system. I think the system at New School San Francisco was a great model to follow. If we had to do it, if the San Francisco was going to go person, it worked really well.
Yeah, I'm glad you said that. I'm going to tell you, as a grandfather, I wasn't too happy about that. That was one of my disagreements. My granddaughter started the early kindergarten, and what they did was let the kindergartners come in 30 days before the regular school would start. But, we pulled up on the first day, and it's like we got the letter in the mail, who the teacher was, and then we got to the front gate. It was like, well, y'all can't come in here. I'm like, hey, I don't get to be the teacher that my granddaughter. So I was a little frustrated, but it worked out good. Later, they did Zoom call us. But, yeah, I was a little hesitant at first. I'm like, I want to send my granddaughter off into the school. I mean, I trust the people that's in there, but, I want to at least have some eye contact and kind of try to get some of that energy and feel. So I know that's one of the questions that community is definitely going to be asking. And I hope, as you all educators think about that, or maybe have some kind of Zoom meeting if it's going to be like that, because I know some schools are definitely going to keep that distance just to keep stop the spread of that virus. But yeah, I think they should have had a little bit more preparedness with that, because I was like, she's like, nope, you can't come in here, just leave her here, we'll get her back. And I was like, yeah, I didn't like that too much. But yeah, that's good information to know.
But what we did, we let the parents know beforehand, and every week, all the teachers, we took pictures of what was going on in the classroom. We sent pictures to the parents every single week with a little summary of what we did that week.
Yeah, Deep. Go ahead, brother Mike. Go ahead.
Yeah. So what I would like to add to the conversation, thinking about what San Francisco Unified School District did. San Francisco Unified was able to create a distance learning platform. So the infrastructure is there. And we're even talking about some of the students still have access to the Wi-Fi that they were provided. So we're prepared to go back fully to in-person instruction. But the governor has also required that each school district has a virtual option for parents who don't feel comfortable in terms of sending their children back. So it's like through independent study. So each district, so people should look into that. Each district should have a virtual option I'm sure there's going to be some limitations in terms of the number of people that can be part of it. But going back to in-person learning, we already have the system for that. So schools are going to be able to do that. That's what we're preparing now. My school is going to be fully open come August 17th. But if something was to occur, we already have the infrastructure and the knowledge to go to a hybrid system, or even go back to, God forbid, go back to schools being shut down and doing distance learning as the dominant paradigm for delivering instruction. Hopefully we won't have to do that, but I do believe that all school districts have learned from this pandemic, this worldwide crisis. And so we do have those systems and structures in place in case we have to do that. But look into it for those who have some concerns, because in our community, we have some issues around being vaccinated. And we're seeing that. It's not just in our community. It's in a variety of places. I've been following the NFL. A coach just got fired from the Minnesota Vikings because he refused to take the vaccination. So we have some of our parents who, for whatever reason, don't want their children vaccinated. The school district should have an option for you for virtual learning if that is the case.
Brittany, did you want to jump in there? I seen your mic off.
Yes, I had a couple of questions. And so when you bring up like the option for virtual learning, how can a family or a student qualify for virtual learning? Like what qualifies for somebody to be able to stay at home?
I think each district is in the process of creating that. And so I do know that for us in the district, there's a connection to independent learning, but the actual details for that's actually still being generated. Okay. So parents should be asking right now, if you have a child that's in San Francisco Unified School District, there should be an ask of the district, what will be the requirements, or when will the requirements be known, so that you can know if your child can be part of that selection.
And then for the kids that are in school, what sort of support is needed? Like, what have you guys seen like in the past year of support that's needed for children to be successful in school now moving forward? Like we saw last year that in order for kids to be successful, they really needed access to computers and internet. And so how going back into the school, is the need for that access still there? And if so, what other needs do children have now moving forward to be successful? Like how can the community support the kids moving forward?
Well, that's a question that has deep levels.
I know, and it was like 3 in 1.
So what I'm going to say is this.
Next year, Linda.
I'll talk about even my response. There's levels to this. So one, I will say this: I'm not a prisoner of the moment. Prior to the pandemic, Black and brown kids weren't being served. The pandemic hit, and then what we really saw was the inequities in terms of the technology at home. But still, Black and brown kids weren't being served before then, and we saw that they weren't being served during the pandemic. So what I would say is this: like the conversation can't be, well, what are you going to do now that we're back from the pandemic? The conversation or the questions have to be, what are you going to change because you have never served our Black and brown kids, right? And I think when we start talking about people getting into this stuff around learning loss, well, our kids weren't learning before then. So we start talking about learning loss. Our kids aren't even part of that conversation of the learning loss because they weren't learning then. The questions I think people should ask going in are the following. If you have assessed my child, where are my child's areas of strength and where are my child's area of growth with respect to reading, writing, math procedural fluency, speaking, whatever the case may be. And once you know that, what is your plan to improve my child's outcomes? Because in the end, all this other stuff, the technology, I have a school that is project-based learning. We do technology. We do presentations. The technology was central to our school site prior to the pandemic. We just found out that when kids went home, some of our kids couldn't continue their studies at home because we found out they didn't have that access. Well, we need to answer and fill in those buckets of knowledge that we know are areas of growth, because we still have to continue to develop our Black and brown kids. We can't sacrifice our children in this conversation of this learning loss. Our conversation needs to be, you need to change schools to fit our needs, period. Before the pandemic, during this pandemic, and now that we're back in the building. It has to change.
Yeah, say that, Michael, say that. I agree with you 100%. Julinda, did you have something you wanted to add to that?
Yes, I did. That was great. Thank you, Michael, for that. I will say, yes, we have to meet our students where they're at. But I will say, like, one of the biggest things that I see at the community college level is even people are hungry. People are hungry. We're doing food banks, we're serving our
Mm.
students, we have a food pantry. People are hungry. And when you're hungry, you can't focus. So, our community, we really need to provide services because there's a lot that's going on in the world and people don't have the basics. People have used our campus to take showers at. They have parked their RVs near the college so they can have electricity. There's some real things going on where we need to feed the people, we need to clothe the people, we need to shower these people so they can focus on learning. Yes, our schools need to do many things as regarding outcomes and meeting our students where we're at. But as a community, we need basic needs. We need food and we need shelter. And I'm just going to put that out there because I know that some of the school districts don't necessarily support that. And we really need to put that out there. We really need to meet our students, meet our community where they're at. And if they're hungry, we need to feed them. If they need a pencil, we need to give it to them. If they need some type of mental or social support, we need to offer that to them. And we also have, student health services on our campus. People have different needs that are going on, whether it's drug addiction or they're in abusive relationships. So there's so much that's out there before a person can actually focus on their academics. So I just want to put that out there. Yes, we have to do our part as colleges, as K through 12, as universities. But as a community, we need to start with humanity services. We need to start feeding our people, making sure everyone is nourished and making sure everyone is healthy so we can take it to the next level.
Yeah, you really hit on something right there because I do like a lot of community engagement efforts, especially like food distribution. And I never once thought to do it on a city college campus or a college campus. And I know from experience, I was the brokest of my life in college. Like it was a situation. So I couldn't imagine going through the pandemic knowing, how I was living. So just to think about, what other people were going through, that that hits home. What about actually, and I just have one more question for you, Jalinda. What about access to technology as far as like the college students? We already know how it impacted elementary school and high schools, but was there a huge impact? Did it have a huge impact in the city college and college kids? Or they're all the same college kids?
Yes, where many students can have laptops, access to Wi-Fi, or even hotspots. So we did our best. We've gotten funding to make sure every student had access to a laptop. We had services where they can come once a week. We had it going on for, I think, like the first 2 months. Once a week, we have pickups where students can pick up a laptop or they can pick up a hotspot. So we were doing our best to make sure that happened. But we did encounter a large impact. And again, the students of color, that Black and brown, they're the ones that have the least and who need the most. So yes, we were there to support our students. Even our African American program, our Umoja program, they're starting more of a wraparound services to implement to help our Black and brown students to make sure that they get the services that they need. So yes, they were impacted.
Yeah. And now with all the adjustments that students are going through now, going back to school, transitioning back to school, what tips can help students and parents just stay focused and calm?
Well, again, if you're asking me, I'm going to say again, find out what's going on your district, what's going on your campus. As Ms. Mildred said, build that relationship, see what's going on with the administrators, see what changes or flexibility that you may have for your student. Because again, we have different types of students, different types of learning styles. So I think that's really important to find out what is going on in your district or in your campus so you can better serve your student.
Yeah, I felt that parents maybe should start a folder, a communication folder, and just keep a calendar of all the activity that's going on. Maybe get a school calendar and take that school calendar and then put it in their phone calendar or on a paper calendar about the PTA, when the kids are going to be assessed. Because I feel like was said earlier, if you don't know where the children are, you don't know where to start. So I think that the parents should have build a relationship with the teachers. So when are you going to assess my student? It should be within the first 30 days that they should be assessed to find out what they need to go forward. And then maybe every month they should be asked for the assessment, where the parents should build that communication, ask the teachers, can you send me a progress report? How's my child doing? What skills does my child need to work on? That way you build not only with the teacher, but with the principal. Also even with the counselor, build relationships with the school and participate. If you can volunteer and go into the schools and volunteer, then you can see firsthand what's actually going on at your child's school. That's very important. And even have the teachers to write something or text or email, or even the parents should maybe write a text or email the teacher to gain rapport. And also talk to the students and say, what do you feel comfortable with? What you don't feel comfortable with? What skills do you feel that you need help with? And always maybe a tutor, maybe tutoring before school, or pulling out during school, or tutoring services after school.
No, definitely very, very important information. I just want to say again to community that's watching, people are texting me, go to our YouTube channel, use our live chat function, put the questions in there that you want to ask the panelists on our YouTube. So if you go to Both Sides of the Conversation YouTube channel, click the live chat function, and you'll definitely be able to ask those questions to the panelists. Or you could go to our Facebook page, Both Sides of the Conversation Facebook page. We have opened up the Facebook page. You can put comments in there, and I'll get them up to the people in the community. But one of the text messages I got was, I think this was Michael was talking, addressing the exemptions of the vaccine for students should be present if they are vaccinated, required prior to school starting. And then children are leaving the San Francisco Unified School District because of the inconsistencies in stable virtual curriculum. They don't have it together. And then I think the last thing she said was they don't have the income or funding plan. So if you all want to speak to that, I think that's something that we should definitely talk about. But Mike, if you want to address that, because I think that was coming after the question that you had spoke about.
Okay, so one, I do want to say this, right? Because San Francisco, the city of San Francisco and San Francisco Unified School District, it's a hot mess right now in terms of politics. I don't play politics. I don't, right? It doesn't mean that I don't get caught up involved. I don't play politics, right? And so I just want to put that on the table. People talking all this, woe is me, SFUSD hasn't done it. That is not true. People are blowing, they're putting a 2 on the 10. That's what we say. They're putting a 2 on the 10, or they capping, right? And here's why I'm saying this. We have what is happening in this entire state of California and across this nation. Schools were shut down. And there were certain groups of parents who wanted children back in school. And so they created a ruckus. And putting the 2 on the 10, people started talking about how San Francisco was failing children because they weren't back in school. When you look at all of the large school districts in the state of California, nobody was back in school. And people tried to compare San Francisco Unified to one private school that was actually open, right? One school could open. There's a difference in opening one school in which you have one building, and San Francisco Unified having over 144 buildings in which you have to inspect and then make sure that they're prepared for people to come in. So there was a difference. So when you start talking about people exiting San Francisco, it wasn't because of the teaching. It's hard to live in San Francisco. I got teachers leaving because they can't live in San Francisco. That is the issue. So when I say I don't want to play politics where people are now going to try to use this to attack the district has enough that we need to hold them accountable for, other than putting on this additional stuff, because we can just straight hold a conversation around, hey, what are we going to be doing? How are we going to improve the outcomes for black and brown kids? And we don't have to go into some false narrative to say the district is looking bad, right? So with that said, I think the question literally becomes, we got the data. How do we ask the district to share information? What are you going to do to improve the outcomes for our kids? And if we know that children have been isolated, when you're isolated, there was an uptick. We have all the data. There was an uptick on kids being depressed. There was an uptick on kids actually feeling suicidal ideation. So then the question becomes not us jumping back into, and this is why I'm saying we get into this whole learning loss conversation. I can see people right now, first day of school, we're going to get back into those books. Our kids have been isolated. How are we going to validate them through social interaction? The buzzword that we're now using in education now is creating a sense of belonging. How do we create that sense of belonging? Because what has happened, we learn through social interaction. We are social beings. And for a year plus, all children who are in districts all throughout the state of California, their social development has been interrupted because schools were closed. Schools are where that socialization occurs. So then the question becomes, how are we going to have a plan to address that anxiety, that gap in that socialization that has occurred? How are we going to not jump back into curriculum, but make sure we rebuild those bonds that have been lost over time? And I think people really do need to lean into that, because I'm going to say this, and I'll close on the comment on this. Sometimes I don't like getting into adult conversations because adult conversations sometimes miss children. I want to hold children conversations. So when my kids get back into the building, we could talk about all that other stuff. But in the end, how are we going to serve those kids in the building? Because that's what's important. And when school is over, if we're going to hold that adult conversation, we can meet anywhere. We can meet down at the board. We can meet online. We can meet on YouTube. We can set up some type of meeting to hold that conversation. But right now, we really do need to center our kids and not play politics, as our children are getting ready to come back into school and their needs have to be the priority.
Man, phenomenal. That's a great point. And yes, there's no personalizing here, just, questions from the community. But I do want to say this, Mike, because I've had a lot of conversations with our young people. I've had the 100% college prep kids on here. I've had some of our graduating class, okay? And the biggest things is a lot of the kids are saying the virtual learning, they definitely didn't learn a lot. A lot of the kids said they didn't learn a lot. It was very conflicting. A lot of our high school students, especially our students in low and different places, they said, hey, I couldn't reach out to my counselor. They didn't reach out to me. There was definitely a email and communication issue that was taking place. And then here in San Francisco in District 10, the Wi-Fi service, our kids were impacted extremely with poor service, and it's still impacted. I get service issues all the time. It's a real problem, right? And I think we really have to address it. And like you said, that's some of the adult and politic questions that we have. How do we get those resources? How do we get the new fiber optic lines in our community? Because definitely, I know Mildred can speak to this. And these private schools and these other kids that was in the avenues and the Sunset, they had none of that digital divide issue, and they were able to get that information. So we are dealing with a struggle. And I know we've had problems with our kids before the COVID, when it came to learning. Those disparities in education and knowledge gaps was already happening. But I mean, now that we're in this COVID, are coming out of it with the digital issue, I mean, how much more impacted are we talking in our community? That's kind of the question I've been asking all of our educators across the line, right? Is it 1 year? Is it 2 years? If our kids was already behind and now we lost a year of education, I mean, how far is our kids behind when you talk about that educational plateau?
And so, brother, those things, for me, what you just shared, that's not politics. The fact that my children are learning project-based learning at my school site, that means when they go home, they can continue their lesson because their lesson is not confined to their time inside of the content class. They can log in onto websites and continue their work. If my children don't have Wi-Fi at home, if they don't have the infrastructure that allows multiple kids inside of a household to log on and be able to do their work, that literally impacts my children. The district and its partners, I'm talking about the district and the mayor and the corporations, they have to be held accountable for addressing that issue. That's not politics. That is reality, because our children are being left behind. We can't say that we live in Silicon Valley. We have we have 1 billionaire for every 11,700 people that live in the city of San Francisco. There shouldn't be an issue with kids getting access to sufficient Wi-Fi in District 10 or any other place, right? These are real questions. But if we start playing politics in terms of like, oh, well, I have some issues around the board. Okay, we can talk about the board later. How are we going to address the issues where we're saying right now there is a digital divide? That is something we can actually fix. How do we fix it? Do we have the will to fix it? Our kids are behind in reading. Do we have the will to teach our kids literacy so that they can be reading on grade level? If our kids can't write, do we have the will to hold those conversations? If we are not going to lean onto that, and these are things that we knew this before the pandemic. I knew this 10 years ago. People wrote about this, the opportunity gap 20 years ago. Why haven't we addressed it? We're spending our time talking about all these other things as opposed to holding us. And when I say us, I don't separate. I'm in the district. How do you hold me accountable for the fact that Black and brown kids aren't reading on grade level? We need to be held accountable for our work. And that can only happen if we stay focused on making us answer those questions.
Yeah, definitely. That's very, very powerful. Miss Kathleen Hicks, one of our phenomenal supporters of both sides of the conversation. She likes what we're doing. She's asking a question about what's the teacher to student ratio on site and versus online that you've seen in the past, and where are we going in the future? And that's for all you on the panel. So each one of you could take a shot at helping Miss Kathleen understand what is that ratio. I know there was like a 30-to-1 ratio at one time, then it went down to 20-to-1. But now that school's starting back with the technology, is the ratio going to stay the same, or is it going to increase, or how is it going to impact us in coming back to school?
Well, at my school, it's a charter school, and we have 2 teachers for 25 students. So we have 2 we don't have a teacher and a teacher aide. We have 2 teachers at the same level, 2 teachers in one classroom with 24 kids. And on Zoom, we had 4 teachers. It was 4 of us, kindergarten teachers, and we had 44 students. And the 4 teachers, we divided up the subject matters, and we taught from 9 to 12 every day, for 4 days a week. And on Fridays, we had like an hour session, a 30-minute session that we taught. And we also had work for them to go on to, but they provided all the technology that they needed. And if they needed, and when we had separate chat rooms, we can go in, if a child needed some services, extra services that we want to work with that child, we went into a chat room. The other 3 teachers stayed on the line where the other teacher went into a chat room. So that's what we did at my school, at the charter school. And I did not hear, my granddaughters went to public school, and the school they went to, they had teachers that it was phenomenal. But their school was on the west side of San Francisco, not on the east side of San Francisco. So there's a disparity of what side of the city you're on, what type of quality education you get. And that's what before the pandemic. So it hasn't changed. Because of the pandemic, it has gotten worse for certain sides of the city, and enhanced another side of the city, because teachers came to the house personally and brought my granddaughters what they needed.
Ms. Linda, you want to speak to any of that?
Well, our ratio has been the same just due to curriculum, where we have a max of students. So the max will be 30-to-1 for college students. There's some courses that are, of course, higher enrollment, but honestly, the enrollment has been decreasing. So the average class has been, 20 to 25 for the college courses, but that's about average. Again, at the community college level, 1 to 30. We do offer supplementary courses. We created a few. As Michael had mentioned earlier about getting our students to read, community colleges now, they have written of their placement tests. So now students can go directly into English 1A, they can go directly in statistics. But since students have the choice to do that, we have created supplementary courses to assist them so they don't have to retake the course, and we're supporting them so they can pass and move forward. So that's what's happening at the community college level.
Wow,
and
great.
What I would say as far as the class sizes, so the school that I work at, we are a community school. So my school site partners with over 50 different agencies during traditional time, during the regular setting. And those 50 different agencies, they're literally in the building, in the classrooms, providing additional services inside the classroom and outside the classroom for kids during the actual school day. So when we went to the virtual learning model, we were able to fold in many of those individuals who supported us. we could have in some classrooms, we can have up to 4 to 5 adults inside the building. One of the things that we do at my school site is we believe in supporting the student as a learner. So many of the outside classroom resources support the relationship between the student teacher inside the classroom. We were able to put those in resources. I'm talking about people. We were able to put those people into the classroom to provide additional supports. Because one of the things that being a community school, we establish completely different relationships, not only with students and families. And I'll give you an example. So when we first went to the pandemic, a student got into a conflict in the community. Now they're at home, and they called and asked the principal, the assistant principal, to come do a push-in, a mediation in the community. And that was acceptable for a kid to even think about, like, we have adults in the building that are resources for their relationships, right? We were able to establish that also during the pandemic, being able to reach out. My community school coordinator was able to raise $15,000, and a big shout out to Zaretta Hammond. She donated $1,500 of the $15,000 we raised. We donated not only food, gift cards, we picked up bleach and Lysol and delivered those to the families. And so when we get back into the building, we won't necessarily have those number of individuals, adults inside the classrooms to support the children, but those people will be on the campus to respond, to come into the classroom on a need-to-need basis. And so our ratio was better during the pandemic than it will be when we get back into the building, which will be traditionally what it is in most public schools. It'll be 30 to 1. And if you're in K2, I'm going to say it has to be less than 22, I believe it is, or 20.
Yeah, one of the community questions, and I can't give 100% on it, but I know, one of the questions was about the Dreamkeeper initiative that the mayor put out. And I know that there are some organizations that are going to be taking place with Saturday School, and there are going to be some collaboration with the school district. But if you all know, or if any of your schools are part of the San Francisco, the mayor's Dreamkeeper initiative, if you have any information on that, definitely you could speak to it. If not, don't worry. But Ms. Kathleen, I know that there is some funding and some organizations that are going to be doing some educational initiatives through the Dreamkeeper initiative. I just don't know how it's going to impact the school district, or is it just going to be Saturday School through the community organizations? And then the next question was, are teachers given performance evaluations? What are the requirements or outcomes? Michael, I know you're a principal, so I'm sure you have to do some evaluations. What does that process look like? I think sometimes community feel, in our community, sometimes we get the newer recruits out of college and they really not as savvy as dealing with some of the issues that we deal with in our community. So can you speak to some of that, you, Mildred, or Jalinda, about the process of evaluating our teachers and educators?
Well, I can go ahead and speak to that. I will say during COVID, many of our faculty had the option to delay their performance evaluation. So I thought that was interesting. They were not prepared to teach students online. They felt that they didn't have the proper training. So some felt it would be unfair for them to be evaluated during this period. So I felt that was interesting. But again, at the community college level, when we hire faculty, they are assigned a mentor that follows them for 4 years, and they're evaluated every year. Of course, they have student evaluations, and I've had the pleasure to administer them as well. So that's something that we do. Our faculty are evaluated, but during COVID, they were given the option to have it delayed until the following year.
Cool. Mildred, you wanted to speak on that?
This year, there's no evaluation of teachers, but we had our we had like a lead teacher, and then we had a teacher that was over let's say the kindergarten cluster, and we met with her every other week, and we met with her like maybe half an hour, 15 minutes or half an hour, and we spoke about reflections on how this is going and how that is going. And then we also, all our work that we did it online so they can track what we was teaching, how we was teaching it. So we had Zoom, I don't know what it is, a PowerPoint. So we had a PowerPoint for every single day. And on that PowerPoint, it showed what we was doing. and how we set things up. And then we spoke to our, let's say, our coach every other week. So therefore, we was really in close contact what we was doing, the head teacher, and then the four of us, we planned the lesson together, and we worked together, and we worked together almost every single day. So we spoke and chat with each other every day. So we made sure what we was doing was done well. And our kids, must say, they did extremely well.
Mike, you want to jump in there, Mike?
Yeah, so I'm going to say, when you start talking about the evaluation process, but that opens up a whole can of worms. And when I say can of worms, I'm not talking about like this is something problematic. There was negotiation between the teachers union and the district. And the reason you're talking about there has to be this negotiation is because the set standard for the teaching profession, it's already set for the state of California in K-12. It's called a California Standard for the Teaching Profession. And so there are 6 major categories, 6 standards, and have some subcategories around it. So that's actually set. The thing that had to be negotiated is that the working conditions had changed, where you were now teaching virtually, where how do you address classroom management in a virtual learning situation? Or how do you address the differentiated support in a virtual situation? How do you determine if the appropriate learning environment has been developed in a learning situation? And so there were some negotiations around what could be evaluated. But teachers did receive evaluations, and those evaluations were always around, like, how are you building community inside of your classroom? How are you making sure that you're creating a learning environment that is a safe, social, emotional, and physically safe learning environment? How are you creating a learning environment that is rigorous, where kids are being challenged and given problems that are worthy tasks, where you're creating what we actually call productive struggle? So we were able to lean into that. But what made this even more complex is, while we're talking about evaluating teachers around that, we were in the process of creating the system that hadn't even been studied to see if what we created was appropriate for all the things that we're saying we're going to be assessing. And so this was a very complex situation when it came to that. And it wasn't just a simple matter of, are you evaluating teachers? The platform that we created could have been a barrier to producing all of those things that we say we needed. And the one thing that I will say is that we didn't really get a chance to assess the appropriateness of the platform that we created. What did our platform create the rigor that we said that we wanted for our children so they can continue to learn? We do know children, I will say this, even with the best virtual learning that was created, we still know it was not optimal for children to learn. Even the students who are the straight A student, it was still not optimal for them to learn. So teachers were evaluated, but that evaluation was very tenuous in terms of connecting it to the actual platform and whether that platform was achieving the outcomes desired.
Wow, phenomenal information. There's a lot of work we have to do. I'm seeing the questions coming in for community, so we'll try to breeze through a couple of those and get to our next question. Brenda asked, was Comcast providing discount service to low-income families? And I know our team reached out. It is some programs that they have. I'm putting it on the screen. I know the city has some programs as well. And then if you all know anything that in your schools or in your districts they have, please share that information with us too, so we can get that out to the community. But one of the questions that the community was asking, because there was a big digital divide, and I just want to hear from you all, what are your educational sites doing to help impact the students? And maybe not so much for you, Jalinda, because those are college students. But a lot of the K through 12 parents were asking about, technology when this Zoom thing came out, and, having access to email. And a lot of the parents didn't have the technology savviness of some of our young people. What did some of the schools do to help educate? I mean, because I was thinking about that too. And I was like, well, we're making this transition into digital learning. How much of the schools did they have like orientations with the parents to teach them how to navigate it? I really didn't see a lot of it because I just kind of already knew I was already using Zoom and different technologies like that from work. But from an educator standpoint, Mildred, Mike, or even Jalinda, did you see anything that your school or you all were doing to help educate or show the parents how to navigate the system? Or was that it just kind of went out? I'm not sure how did that take place.
They was technology savvy, and they did help the parents. They even went on their own time to bring parents on board and help them. But I also tutored kids that was going to the San Francisco Unified School District. I was tutoring some kids for 7 hours a week. And I was there with the parent who was frustrated. She had to constantly, they had 3 children in the home. One of them got a laptop. The other one did not. And then I was telling the parent, you need to call and tell them that they can't share one laptop. And so I had to work with the parent and tell the parent what to say to the principal about that. So they did get a laptop. Then after that, they didn't have a hotspot. They didn't have internet. So I told them about Camcast or whatever they put, a special program. And they couldn't get that with like $9 a month or $10 a month. But you couldn't have Camcast. So you have to wait 6 months before that kicked in. And so then I said, well, you need to go to the school to get a hotspot. So they went to the school to get a hotspot. Then the computers that they received wasn't working properly. So all of that time is passing, and all the education that they supposed to be getting soon didn't happen. And then the kids had to learn how to do seesaw. The kids did not know how to do seesaw. So then the parents had to get on the phone and talk to the teacher about how to navigate how to do seesaw. So they also had to educate this particular parent how to do technology, where she can teach her kids how to do technology. At the end, about, I would say in April, the kids began to do the technology very well. And so the parent learned it as well. So it was the technology was not given to them at a sufficient time. The hotspot, they didn't ask about the hotspot. Then I also volunteered at the Unified School District at 25th Avenue, putting package together to send out to the schools to give to the students. And what they had in there, it was like, oh my goodness, pencil, paper, Post-it, a book, something like that, a ruler. And then I think the teachers have to do a lesson plan around what package need to be sent out. But then it took, a week to 2 weeks to put that together. And then they gave it to the principal. They took it to the schools. And then the parents had to come to the school to pick it up. Look how much time was wasted, all that time. So, but at the school I'm worked at, we also did the packaging, and parents picked up every Friday. But we still kept in contact with the family on a daily basis. So charter school versus the San Francisco School District, we did things different. And the kids still had the spirit, even if they was good students, but they still did well. And some of the schools in the San Francisco School District did well. But the parents had, like my daughter, she had to work a half a day. So her job allowed her to work a half a day, and she stayed at home from 9 to 12 on Zoom, and then she went to work at 12:30. So her job was like maybe 5 minutes away from the house. So a lot of parents was not able to do that financially. So some parents couldn't do that. And some parents allow their kids to even stay home by themselves. I know one person that was a teacher, that the child was about maybe 8 years old. He was at home, or maybe 6 years old, at home by himself. And his mother wasn't at home. And then the teacher realized that this child was at home by himself. So she stayed on the line all day and kept him company where he will not feel afraid. So a lot of things went into this Zoom because parents had to work. Then kids were at home by themselves. And so some got on the internet, and some didn't because they didn't know how. So that's the end of that.
Yeah, and so, just hearing everything that you've been saying and just everything that we've been talking about so far on this show, there were a lot of negative aspects to distance learning, even though it increased access from children to the schools, but, it brought light to us not being prepared for that, our communities not being prepared for that. But I'm just curious, was there anything positive that happened that we can take away from distance learning? And out of that, is there anything that the students can take back into school with them? Any learned behaviors or any new form of engagement? Or is there anything that we can take back into the schools or anything positive?
I think technology. They learn a lot of technology because they didn't know a lot of technology before, but they can go back now. They know how to do a lot of technology, a lot of things that they didn't know. What they call it, coding. So
Mm-hmm.
I was learning a lot of coding where they didn't have that access prior to. Because those two kids, they know computer like crazy now. I mean, they can go to the internet and get and find whatever they want to find. So those skills, those computer skills, got very sharp, and now they know a lot about technology that they wouldn't have had the opportunity to learn if they didn't have this happen.
Right. It definitely, increased access to technologies in the community. Like you could drive by parks and see little computer hubs set up in parks, and and youth in the parks, doing their homework and receiving tutoring. And so I know all the things that it brought light to. I have to give a shout out to a lot of people, in the community that came together and like organized and like put together these pods and like these, learning hubs that really, help the youth. I was just saying that I think about my girl Maika Pinkston from the Heart and the stuff that she does in the park out there off of, I can't think, it's like Enos Avenue. I can't think of the name of the park right now. Lord forgive me. Indian Basin. Yes, they've been trying to engage that park, but you can drive through there and see activation sites for youth. And so I know that's definitely one good thing. As we move forward post-COVID, it's very important for our communities to have access to technology. So if anything, like you say, that access is there and our people are now learning how to, really use computers to learn and to progress with. So yeah, that's really good.
Ms. Jelena, did you have something to say? That I want Mike to answer this question and then he could give his feedback. Go ahead, Jelena.
Yes, mine will be quick. I will say I believe that some personal relationships have developed between the faculty and the student. Just from the professors that I spoke with, they've learned a little bit more empathy, compassion, giving their students extra assistance and help with whatever papers and situations they've been in. So I think that has helped the relationship. This COVID has made it real. It's made it real personable for the faculty and the teachers to actually connect as a person. And again, that compassion, that leeway or that extra help. So I think that's been a real plus.
Go ahead, Mike.
Absolutely. I want to lean in on what Jalinda said because she was right on. I believe the biggest thing that came from this, if we can walk away and we just want to talk about one thing, empathy was learned. And when I want to say empathy, like teachers, when you are in proximity to a student, you can understand what is actually happening, but you understand it from the teacher's perspective, looking at a student inside a classroom setting. But now with the pandemic and everybody was at home learning, teachers were having their own issues, just like the students were having their own issues by being at home. And so teachers were showing up in faculty meetings complaining about the very things that students were complaining about. And so then there was this shared experience between the teacher and the student because of the platform, because there was limited proximity. And so there was this empathy that was developed, and it allowed us to engage in a deeper and more meaningful conversation around the sense of belonging and what does it mean to build community. So the conversation that my staff is holding right now, that we're going to be prepping for on August 11th and 12th, I can tell you right now, it is off the charts around sense of belonging, because during the pandemic, the one thing that we were all forced to do was listen to children more, because they were not in proximity to us. So if we wanted to know what's going on, I couldn't infer based upon what was happening inside of my classroom. Kids had their video off. So in order for me to find out, I had to ask the kids, which means it placed the adult in a position to listen. And then they were listening from a perspective of empathy, because they too were feeling the same thing the kids were feeling, because wait, I got to come through and evaluate you. Hey, I got to do a walkthrough. Hey, I need to talk to you about an incident that occurred. And the teachers had all kinds of feelings around the limitations of virtual learning. And now they understood what was happening to kids. And so I'm saying, if we walk away from anything, that empathy, and we need to leverage that to the hilt coming back into this building, because that's what we don't have for our Black and brown kids. We don't have empathy. And there's a lack of empathy that allows us to do what we do to them, or allows us to not do what we need to do for them. Right? That's what I
Yeah,
was.
very, very powerful. And I want to say thank you, Jalinda, for bringing it up because I was getting there because I did hear that from a lot of our students who came on our platform talking about, the teachers having compassion and things of that nature and having that understanding. But I want to flip this a little bit. So I do want to say one of the good things were, in our community, we do deal with high suspension rates and different things of that nature in our community. And one tool that I'm thinking that this online education to definitely help as we come back into school when kids are disciplined or having issues and they are suspended or sent home, they still could participate in class. So I think that's one of the good things that this Zoom, so that our kids don't lose out, because sometimes kids get suspended, they home and they get a packet and they don't do the work or they not engaged. So I think that's one thing positive that could come out of this virtual learning. But this is both sides of the conversation now. I don't want everybody out there to forget. We always going to talk about both sides of the conversation, and we're going to keep it authentic and we're going to keep it real, because I got a lot of white teachers, a lot of teachers who were teaching, and I got a lot of phone calls, right? The other thing about this virtual learning that gave some compassion and some understanding too, the realness of our community. So, the teachers was on there and hearing the parents in the background arguing and sometimes seeing some of the craziness that goes on in our homes inside. And it actually, a couple of staff was saying how it really impacted them, because, it's one thing for kids to come to school and we hear about the trauma and the things that's happening in the community, the violence and things of that nature. And when kids come to school, sometimes they don't really understand it, but to be online and to see some of the bad behavior that happens in our homes, in our community, it was actually exposed. And some people got to see and hear some of the things that take place in our homes. But with that being said, that's why this is a very important conversation. How do we get our parents prepared for school? But we also going to flip it, because I told everybody on August 8th, we will be having the parents come on and have their questions and concerns about returning to school. But as educators, we got to have both sides of the conversation. When we're dealing with our community, I know Miss Mildred said it early, and I brought it up on our show about how our people show up at school. How do we deal with our educators and things of that nature is also a problem that we have to deal with. And I hope we do a better job, because I think a lot of parents has a better appreciation this year with school starting back, because a lot of the issues that our educators have complained about students and about some of the things that they deal with during the day, a lot of parents had to deal with it, and a lot of parents wasn't so patient. And a lot of my people was calling me saying, man, now these parents is mad. They want to get their kids back in school. Now they see how we have to deal with at school. So we're going to bring both sides of this conversation to the community, because I want our parents in the community, and I want the support of community to help support some of these families, because we do be having some issues in our community, how we show up as parents when engaging with our educators. And, we have to heal that relationship and make it transparent so that we could definitely really have impact with our community. But Mildred, you can start off there. We lost Mildred at the right time. We lost her at the right time. All right. But if anybody want to talk to that, go ahead. And if you don't, it's fine. But I think sometimes that our parents, in our community, and I'm talking, and this is real talk here. We always talk about our community. Sometimes our community, we are famous, for pushing the envelope on our educators and what they need to do. But I think sometimes as adults, parents, community, we don't take accountability for some of our behaviors that also impacts that role that our educators need. You know what I mean? I think that's just something that's a real dialogue that we have to have. Hopefully we get Mildred back, because I know she wanted to speak to that, but we lost her right at the right time. But go ahead, Mike, if you or Jalinda want to jump in there.
I'll go real quick. And Mike, you can take it. I will say I was a single parent. I raised 3 children. So really at the end of the day, you need to be involved. You need to know what type of school your child is going to. And I will say, when my daughter was going into kindergarten, they told me that the neighborhood school was like the worst school. And I was like, what? And I did the extra step as a parent. I went down to the district office. I went to see what my options were, and I chose a different school for my daughter. So again, as a parent, you need to be active. You need to know what you want for your child. You need to be prepared. But again, just like anything else, we want to go to the club. We get our hair done. We get our nails done. We get that new outfit. We got to do the same for our kids. We got to enrich their mind. We got to make sure we get that laptop. If you all can afford Jordans, y'all can afford a laptop. If y'all can afford an iPhone, y'all can afford Wi-Fi, right? So that's the thing. It's your priorities. What do you want for your kids? And I mean, I'll do a little humble brag. I had my first son when I was 19 years old, but he lives in Denmark, Copenhagen. He has his master's degree. He's traveled all over the world. Why? Because we were intentional about what we wanted for our child. So again, just like anything else, you want a future for your child, you got to plan for your child. You got to give them the best. And your kid should have the top 10. If you got the top 10 in music and cars and whatnot, your kid needs to have the top 10 education, the best laptop, the best tutor, the best resources. And again, I know what a single mom is like. I know the money is tight, but there are resources there. And that's what I used in the community. I used all these different organizations and these Black folks to help me, especially with my younger son. So again, it's about what you want for your child. If you say you want the best, then you need to go get that for your kid, because anything else is just an excuse.
Woo, boy, we jumped into the deep water now, man. So I'm going to say yes. I'm signing off all the stuff that Jalinda said. She preached to the choir. But what I want to do is I do want to lean in on this thing where sometimes we have pathologized our community. Sometimes the way we look at some of the things, like matter of fact, you make reference to like stuff like bad in our community. You know something? Like the trauma that has happened to the Black people collectively is real. People get to read about that stuff in books. People get to see about it flashed on screens with the stuff that we're seeing now with unarmed Black men and women being beaten up and attacked. But that stuff happens to us all the time, whether you get to see it or not. The communities in which we live. We just had a former president who was a flat out racist. Our current president was part of the pushing of the crime bill to push 3 strikes you're out that devastated the Black community. He was part of the group Clinton, Hillary, and Bill, the current president that we have, around saying that Black people were super predators, need to be locked up. So what I'm saying is the normalcy that exists in terms of the hostility directed at us, when you see the behaviors in our community, we need to stop saying that that's bad. It just makes perfect sense. When you understand that stuff has happened to us, it makes perfect sense. And some of us roll of the dice, family member decided to move, like my outcomes are different. My folks grew up in Arkansas. My folks picked cotton, not from a historical perspective. They were literally cotton pickers, sharecroppers in Arkansas. And then I happen to have a grandmother who wanted to move out here from California to give a better opportunity for the children because the mechanical cotton picker was purchased and they were going to be placed out of work. That's how I get to be coming out here in California. I happen to be born to go to school. And then all of a sudden in one generation, I go to UC Berkeley, right? That was by the luck, roll of the dice. That was not through strategic planning. But then some of us, I become a parent and I'm like you, Jalinda, I'm very strategic. Both of my children ended up graduating from college. What about our parents who aren't strategic? And this is where I'm saying we let schools off the hook. A child coming to school does not have to have a motivated and focused parent. It is the school's job because school is compulsory. That means your children have to go to school because it's the law. And if your child has to go to school, then what is the school doing to educate kids? We have to educate all kids, whether they have a Jalinda as a mom at home or whether they do not. Whether that kid is motivated or that kid is not motivated, it is the school's job not to determine what household they come from. It is the school job to educate them, right? And it's just a benefit for the kid if they happen to come from a household where the parents, like Jalinda and myself, we have a focus for them to be educated. But we keep letting the school off the hook for the kids who show up and they don't have all those advantages at home, right? The school is still responsible for that. And this is why I'm saying we are a community school. And I believe community schools are the way to go, period. If your school is not a community school, and I'm talking about a specific thing with a community school, not part of like the Beacon program where you have the after school program and the people are folding to the day program, a community school strategy has a community school coordinator whose sole job it is to assess the needs of the students and the families throughout the community at your school, and then partner with the agencies during the day program to come onto the campus to meet the needs. If that is hunger, if that is housing insecurity, if that is therapy, whatever the case may be, It needs to be addressed in the school because not everybody has Jalinda as a parent. And we know this. We know some parents are incarcerated. Some parents are in and out of the system. Some parents can't, for whatever reason, they can't even be near their children. Those kids still need the high quality education and a sense of belonging. We can no longer let the schools off the hook for not educating all Black and brown kids, especially with the trauma that exists in our side of our community. We can't blame our parents for why we're not educating those kids.
Thank you. You both have said that so wonderfully. And it is great to know that we have, parents and professionals like you all that bless our kid. Because I'm dealing with Lil Uzi Clip and Lil Ray Ray, Lil Pookie and Lakeisha and Shanae that's out there. They ain't invested in their kids. So I appreciate what you all doing. And definitely as community, we want to definitely wrap our arms around those families and support them who don't have that inspired drive to put education important. But I hope today's conversation really opens the eyes of some of these families to really think about it, because I think Jalinda is right. These people are out here buying iPhones every 6 months when they come out. We out here buying Birkin bags and Gucci and all of this stuff. But when it comes down to the essential needs, what our kids need in our school, sometimes those expenses are not being met for that. So I really appreciate that. That's just being real and transparent. And it's not to put nobody down, but it's about shifting the narrative and changing the paradigm of how we do this. And it starts with community, being accountable and holding these people accountable and not enabling the bad behavior. And I think that's why I had to bring both sides to this, to open that up. And it's not to badmouth our community or put anybody down. I think sometimes in our community, we do a disservice to each other as well when we enable these behaviors that we know are not right, that negatively impact our community. So very powerful stuff. Miss Are you ready, Miss Mildred? Because I know this is something that you want to talk about. Because I want you to talk about them bonnets when they come to school with them bonnets on.
Oh my goodness. I have 4 daughters. They all went to college. They all graduated with scholarships. I told them I wasn't going to pay for them to go to college. They're going to pay for themselves to go to college. And how they're going to pay for that? They're going to get A's and B's. And a B- was not acceptable in my house. And so they all went to college. They did well. And then I treated my kids in my class the same way. I did not allow any kids that was under my tutoring to either leave the 1 grade to go to another grade. If they was going to the 5th grade, if they were going to the 6th grade, they was ready for the 8th grade. So I made sure all of my students was 2 years ahead. My kindergarten is going to 1st grade at a 2nd and 3rd grade reading level, writing level, math level. So what I'm saying is, like you were saying, the school is responsible. They have to hold it accountable. When my kids did not come to school, I went to their house. I had one student that came to school at 2:00 in the day. He said, I came because Miss Hill, I knew you were coming to my house. So you have to let the children know, the parents know that you're concerned and that you have care. You care about their child. So when the kids come to school an hour late, and then they say like, I'm hungry, I want some food. I mean, parents have to take ownership of that. Why your child coming to school an hour late? Why are they coming an hour late and plus being hungry? And then with an attitude. That attitude was not learned that 1 hour. That attitude was learned what? I'm talking about a 5-year-old. I'm talking about something that just happened last Friday in my class. That child is 6 years old. She has 6 years of home training. I'm not putting the family down. But why are you going to complain about, well, my child said that you didn't share this with them, but your child came an hour late and then want some food and demand not to sit down, not to listen to the teacher, but she's going to stand there and yell to the top of her voice, say, I want something to eat. How can a child learn if they don't come to school ready, mentally ready, physically ready, and with the confidence that they can do it? That's my pet peeve. For 30 years in the school district, I've been dealing with that. Now I'm in a charter school. I'm dealing with the same thing in charter school. So public school and charter school there is any difference. The parents have to take ownership. The parents are the first teachers of their children. The first 5 years is what, 90% what they're going to learn in the first 5 years. So I'm letting the parents know, can you please not just bring balloons on their graduation day and hold them up with those long fingernails and the hair done and a three-piece suit, and can't even spell balloon, can't even spell three-piece suit, can't even recognize their name on their certificate. Come on now. Don't blame the school. Don't blame the system. Don't blame the whiteness. It's us. Break that chain of that generation gap. I grew up on a chicken ranch. I used to wring necks off the chickens and eat them for my meal. I grew up on a peanut farm in Arkansas. So, and that was the first time I realized when I went to Arkansas when I was in high school. I thought all white people can read. When I went there in 1968, when the black kids had to go to the white school, that's when the first time I said, wow, white kids can't read. And these black kids in the South, they was reading and writing, had all this politics going on. And in San Francisco, I was blown away. Parents, love your children. Let them grow up where they can take care of you when you get 90 years old. Parents, love your children. Make sure they can read. Take them to the library. Buy a dictionary. Buy supplies. Buy things and ask them about their day. Take them to the zoo. Take them to the museum. Walk in the park with them. Show them how a tree grows, why a tree is bending over. It's because the wind is blowing in that direction. Do the science. Just critical thinking skills. Ask open-ended questions. Why? What for? How that happened? If you take them places, and when they have to write an essay, they don't have to sit in the class. I don't know what to write. I don't know. Give them something to write about. That's all I have to say.
So I do want to lean in on this, right? Because this is where I'm going to say community schools, right? I had a young man, he Double Rock. He was my school. People feed him from Double Rock, Alice Griffith Projects. Young man, this was a Monday morning, 8:30. He's sitting in the office. He's getting ready to go home. And I'm a nosy administrator. So I pop in like, man, where you going home? Man, what's going on? Like, oh, I'm not feeling well. It's like, what happened? He said, I threw up. I was like, okay, cool. What did you eat? I'm an investigator. I had some hot chips, some hot Cheetos, and coffee. And I was like, okay. I said, what did you have before that? He said, the hot chips, the hot Cheetos, and the coffee were the first thing he had since he ate Friday at school. This kid had gone the entire weekend. This kid's now sitting in school. He's going on. I was like, man, first of all, get up. Let's come to my office. So he went to my office. And my school is located near a lot of eateries. So we got some from Fat Belly Deli, commercial for Fat Belly Deli. I got a sandwich for the young man and I bought him a Gatorade. Young man ate half the sandwich and drank half the Gatorade. Why? He asked me if he could take the rest home to his brothers and sisters. I said, man, that is your food. You can do whatever you want. So he wrapped it up and he put the lid on it. I was like, I stored it in my refrigerator. You come get it after school. And then I said, you know what I told him? Now you need to take your butt back to class because you have to learn. But we had an agreement. Since I sat over at lunchtime detention, I said, I need him to be my assistant for lunchtime detention 2 days out of the week. And for payment in doing that service for me, I'll provide you lunch. So 2 days out of the week, he would sit down and we would break bread and eat and all this kind of stuff, right? There are things that are beyond our children's control. And I'm saying we need to remove all excuses from not educating children. If a child shows up in my classroom and she shows up at my school and she says she's hungry, we're going to fix that. If I have to attach you to my hip and take you to the store myself, if I have to have Safeway pull up with a big ass truck and back up and drop off food, we're going to make sure we do that. But I will say this, and this is where I'm going to lean in and say this about San Francisco Unified. San Francisco Unified has a program called Breakfast in the Classroom. My school participates in that Breakfast in the Classroom program. Every student in my school gets a free breakfast. And that food that is not consumed, we don't send it back. That food becomes snacks. So whenever kids show up, if you show up late, whatever case may be, the food that is not consumed in the morning, that is snacks in every classroom. It's seated in the hallway on a table where you can, in passing period, you can grab a piece of fruit, a bagel. Food will never be an issue on why you ain't gonna pay attention in school, right? And so then I'm saying that if we begin to think about the patterns of behaviors, food is an issue in our community. Housing insecurity is an issue. Some kids don't get regular sleep, right? Some kids don't have parents who actually have real money. Like we use the story around the iPhone and the $150 Michael Jordan shoes. But I got kids who live in those communities. They don't come to school with iPhones. They don't have those shoes, right? Those kids are not part of that narrative. How do we remove? We need to keep the kids, the school on the hook for educating these kids. And there are ways that we can do it, and that comes from the leadership. Like, I don't put that on teachers. Like, I'm not gonna have my teacher running around saying, oh, how can I get food? That's on administration. How do we design stuff? Because I can't have my teachers thinking about food, being a big brother, being a counselor, when they have to teach math, science, ELA, social studies, right? We need to support them. That's on a bigger level. And I think we're not holding that conversation. And sometimes we get lost in talking about what the parents aren't doing, which prevents us from talking about what the school district is not doing to support those parents that we know are not a one-off. Those parents aren't outliers. Not in our community, not in LA, not in Oakland, not in San Bernardino, not in New York. They're common. So then what is the school going to do about that? Because we should have an answer for that. Community school strategy. And I'm thinking about doing something around community schools so that people understand what I'm talking about, why every school should be a community school and use a community school strategy.
Wow, powerful stuff. And while we're talking about Arkansas, I'm going to give out a big shout out to all my family. You know, we come from Arkansas, Garland, Park.
My family too, Pine Bluff.
I got family all over Arkansas. And,
Arkansas.
Yeah, so you know, all the way around there, you know, we migrated back in the early days. My grandfather and them came out here to the West Coast. So definitely shout out to all the Arkansas, all my family out there, because we definitely have a large following in there. But also, you know, I'm just glad you all said that. I see the community is giving you guys a lot of clap and praise for speaking today. And I think that's very powerful, because I think sometimes community does get tired of it as well. But Mike, what you was talking about, the food thing, I read an article here, and I think I shared it on our platform. I know Governor Newsom submitted some bill. I know they invested some money that all California schools will get free food. So I don't know how that's impacting all the different school districts, but I did see an article that they're doing something to make sure that food is in our that the free meals and stuff like that happens for all of the schools, free for our children. So I'm gonna do a little bit more research on that and get that out, because it should be rolling out. And I don't know, you know, how things roll down from the states to the city, but I know that they are implementing a food program into community. But I'm glad you talked about the community schools, and I definitely want to bring you back to have a conversation, because I do have a couple of other people in my network who actually are part of those community schools, and they are talking high praise about them. And, you know, I always throw that question, like, you know, what is the alternative? If it's not working in our school districts, if it's not working locally, if the charter schools are not working, is the community school the alternative that we need to go through? I think it still need to be more research from what some of the people are saying, but I know some people that are doing them, and they were saying there's phenomenal things happening and great results. So that might be an answer to some of it. But yeah, I would love to have you, you know, speak a little bit more to it and understand. But for the parents out there to get involved, I think Jalinda and I think you know, you all touched on that about our parents getting involved. I think that's just something that we have to do. When we look at these PTA boards and we look at what's going on with the engagement of our parents, it doesn't seem that it's a lot, right? And it seems like these other communities are getting the things that they need move forward because they do have the PTA boards and they have the access. And I know, Mike, you talked about it before on our show of different things, but I want to know, how do we create this family to get these families involved? Now that we do have Zoom, I think it's cool because you can record those Zoom meetings and get it back to parents who might be working. But we got to get our community and our families engaged with the process of education. And I want to give a shout out to Dr. Cheryl Davis at the Human Rights Commission, because she believes in a lot of things that I really believe in, education and reading. And I know Ms. Mildred talked about it. You know, these young people from 0 to 6, that's the critical learning period, right? Where they grab a lot of their manners and their behaviors and things of that nature. And I know Cheryl Davis is always educating community about making sure that our kids are being read a book for 30 minutes to an hour. You know, how important is that? Because, you know, I hear this on these calls and I hear people talking about the importance of reading. But Mildred, Jalinda, like, how important is that? Because I really want our parents in the community to really understand how important that reading time, making sure that our kids read for 30 minutes an hour every day. And I understand that there's a lot of kids with special needs. And I'm all in favor for audiobooks. I believe in audiobooks. I know a lot of people don't, but I believe in audiobooks, but if you guys could talk to that, because I really want our community out there, mothers, fathers, grandmothers, aunties, to really understand the importance of catching our young people and doing that work of reading and letting our young people read for periods out the day?
Reading is very important, because you can't drive down the street, you can't go to the store without not knowing how to read. How are you going to buy a product? How are you going to know where to go? How are you going to read the street signs? Reading is very essential just for just everyday living. You need to know how to read. And I think a child needs to go to the library at least once a week. They can check out 50 books just to go to the library and go there. And if they see an adult in their life reading, then they want to read. Because if they see their mother, whatever the parent's passion is, normally that child learn that passion as well. Excuse me.
You want to jump? Go ahead, Mike. You could jump. Okay, there you go.
Okay. So I'm saying this, reading is very essential, just like drinking water, just like breathing. If you don't breathe, you don't live. If you don't read, you don't understand. You don't have that knowledge. You can't have a conversation, a decent conversation with anyone. They can tell you anything. You can go to the doctor, and if you don't know what's going on, reading is so essential to your lifestyle, to your life, just living, just like breathing. Excuse me, jump in.
Go ahead, Mike. You see, she has the young people there. She's educating them about, when I'm on the phone, because that's my grandma, we get hit in the head, but I know she's educating them young people.
So I'm saying is that going to the library, even going to the bookstore once a month or maybe once every other month, save some of your candy money, save some of your McDonald's money, that fast food money, and go buy a book. Buy a book. Just show them, just even take them to the library and just say, this is what the library looked like. Take them to a bookstore. And I'm an advocate not buying books on Amazon. I want to go to a bookstore, because if you go to a local bookstore and you support that local bookstore, then pretty soon they can get more books. My background, I was downstairs in my little office. If you notice, I had books all over. I have over 5,000 books. And all those books that you saw was all African-American books, because a lot of bookstores don't buy or purchase African-American books, because a lot of us don't buy the books. So you can't go to the store and say, they don't have a book look like my daughter, because we don't support them. But if we go and support them, because I have to say this, Cheryl Davis, she is the bomb. She supported my class at John Muir. She took my kids. I had my kids to go down to Marcus Bookstore, and those kids got to pick out 2 to 5 books to take home. It was because of Cheryl Davis program. And my kids went to the museum because of Cheryl Davis. My kids went to Washington, D.C. for 8 days because of Cheryl Davis. I'm saying Cheryl Davis is my hero, because she supported me. When I took them to the Gold Rush, when I took them on field trips, I exposed the kids. I said, you may not go here. You may not go to the lighthouse. You may not go to the zoo, because parents don't have those resources. So I told them, Cheryl Davis, the bomb. I went to 25 field trips in one every year, taking my kids everywhere. And they have to read. They have to write every day. Reading and writing, and a lot of those kids went on to college. A lot of them sent me letters. They went on to college, and 5 of them already have PhDs, because I told them reading every single day. We read every day for an hour in the classroom. That's all I have to say.
I just want to say I thank you for saying that, because sometimes people, they just think I just be saying stuff, but I really be I tell Dr. Davis all the time, I'm like, you're a genius, right? And people be thinking I'm just gassing or saying it. John, you just say things about people, but if you really look at her commitment to education and how she believes in education on our young people is phenomenal. Some of the workbooks and things that she's put together. And I just, I always say that. So I'm just glad you said that, because she is very committed to the education in our community. And I think a lot of times in our community, people don't believe in it. And just to see the courageous leadership of education and her supporting our young people, I definitely just had to say that. And thank you for saying that, because I think that's important. And she is a rock star in our community, doing some phenomenal things to impact our community. And I'm glad you said that. I wanted to get that out. But Mike, go ahead, jump in there. Then Jalinda, I know you've been waiting patiently. Go ahead, Mike.
So one, you can order books online from Marcus Books. You don't have to buy from Amazon. Marcus Books, they got a great selection of books and a variety of ages, so you can get a lot of books for kids too. So Marcus Books. What I would say is that I think that we have to have some patterns of behavior. And this is something that when you start talking about relationships with parents, one of the things that I was very intentional around was reading with my child, or both of my children, when they're around. Like literally when they were like 4, 5, 6 months, they would be seated on my lap if I was reading a newspaper, if I was reading a book. And that just became the habit. Whenever I did some reading, they were with me. Children mimic what they see. And since reading was something I did, something that my wife did, they became readers, right? I even got a picture somewhere of my daughter. When she's in a pamper and a little top, she has the newspaper upside down, but she's trying to mimic what we were doing, right? Because she knows that this is what people do, right? And so what I would say, and the reason I did that, it had nothing to do with like, oh my God, you're just such a genius. I was a student of Head Start. My mama didn't do that for me. My mama didn't sit me on the lap, but Head Start was a program for people who, low income individuals, the project, whatever the case may be. I got to go to Head Start. What we're finding out is that our kids enter kindergarten without having that lap time to learn to read, et cetera. So Head Start was a program that was allowing kids who were from low income families to have this experience of going to school and learning to read, getting these pre-behaviors so that when you entered kindergarten, you weren't behind the 8 ball. And what I'm saying is it doesn't have to necessarily be a Head Start program. If you just put in, any parent can do this. You can just say 30 minutes out of the day at this time, I'm just going to set aside some time and I'm going to read to my child. It could be anything. You just have to read to your child. And if you have literacy challenges, find somebody else in the family, find an older brother, sister, whatever the case may be, to read to them, or find a neighbor. But the child needs to see that reading is a fundamental thing, as opposed to them arriving in school and for the first time they've been shown that these are the behaviors, like you're supposed to hold a book this way and this is how you're supposed to track words. They should have some pre-background. So I'm saying parents, they should do that. And then in addition to that, then they need to also make sure that the school is held accountable for understanding how their child is progressing in their literacy development at the elementary school level and also at the middle school level, right? That's what I would say. And let me go on and moonwalk out of that.
Very phenomenal. Before you go, Jalinda, I see Miss Charlie Burke in there, and she's definitely giving a testament about her son and his reading thing. And this weekend, it was something very powerful. I know Marcus Bookstore, but it was a brother that was out at the lake selling books. And I was connected with him, and he's going to come on our platform at some point to talk about the books and things he sells. But it was a guy out there who was homeless. And, he was going around and he was asking people for things. And, he came up to me and this was very powerful because he was just like, hey, man, I need some help. And I said, what do you need, brother? And he was a guy probably homeless. He said, I don't want no money for no food, nothing for no drink. I want to buy a book from this brother at the stand. He got this book that I need, that I want to read. And so I told him, man, $20 book, I'm going to buy you the book. And I told him, I said, you read the book and I'm going to come back. He showed me where he be. I said, I don't care about you being homeless. I'm going to come back and I want to know about this book. But it was a very touching moment to see this brother asking to read, you know what I mean? Even in the situation, the circumstances that he was in, it was about reading. He's like, I don't want no food. I don't want nothing. I just want this book. So I bought him the book. I told him to come back and think, but I think reading is very, very fundamental. And, Jalinda, as you go, I just want to get your input too on what do you feel about audiobooks? Because I let my granddaughter listen to audiobooks and, some of the programming that she listens to. And you could just hear her language and certain things, how she articulates stuff. So I think it's good. A lot of people criticize audiobooks, but I think it's good.
If it increases your vocabulary and makes you better, I don't see nothing wrong with it. And that's what reading does. It builds your character, it builds your vocabulary. I'm always amazed when I run into a 2 or 3 year old and they're articulate discussing their day. And that's who they're around. Like you had mentioned earlier, Michael, about mimicking. When you're around educators and you're around intellectuals, your children will pick that up and their vocabulary will increase and they will shine when they go to school. So again, whether it's an audio book or you're reading to them, but just taking that time and them knowing that this is a book. And as you know, like I'm a self-published author, my children were introduced to that early because I was taking them out, selling the books, and they understood what books was. They understood reading, they understood vocabulary, and then they started to understand business. So, there's just so much that can evolve from reading. Again, like Miss Mildred said, you need to learn how to drive. You have to learn how to stop, go, the basic essentials. How do you fill out a job application? how to express or communicate to your teacher as a parent and as a child. So reading is very important, especially to build that vocabulary.
I also wanted to add that it's also good to help build like a child's imagination. I think about when I was a child and my little sister, she used to read a lot and how creative she was and always thinking of like vivid things and, writing her own creative stories at a very young age. And so I know that it just builds that character of creativity in a child as well. Building imagination is really important. I'm a creative myself, so I'm all for whatever to do to build that.
Yeah, very, very phenomenal stuff. So I definitely want to be, respectful to everybody's time. This is a great conversation. I think this really went the right way that I wanted to go. I see the community. They loved you all today for having this conversation. But we are getting close to that 4:00 hour, and I want to be respectful for everybody's time. So what I want to do is just kind of go around to each one of you and, try to give some words to the community as we are getting ready to transition back to school. And I know there's a lot of concern about people being vaccinated, not being vaccinated. It's a lot of things that's going to be coming up here in the next couple of weeks. But definitely, I want to let everybody give some parting words to the community, some encouraging words to our families, our grandmothers, our people that's involved with our kids as we start to transition back to school. And we'll definitely, over the next couple of weeks, community start getting the backpack giveaways and the services out to the community. I'm getting a lot of people that's going to be sending me stuff. So please follow us on all our social media handles, especially on our Facebook page, our Instagram, Both Sides of Conversation. For all you that are on a panel today, if you have educators, events that you like to get out to community, digital flyers, please get it to them so that we can get them out on our social media handles so that community can know how to get involved. I am so frustrated when I hear community talk about there's events and resources that they didn't know about. So we're just trying to do our part. Brittany has a great following with Wise SF. And we're just going to keep trying to get all of these resources out to community, to different communities so that people can be involved. And, so just wanted to put that out there. But before we go, I want to give everybody an opportunity to close off with some parting words, some affirmation, something positive to our parents as we're going into this new unseen, unknown school year. We don't know what it's going to look like, but like Mike said, we know it's going to be good because we learned some things, and hopefully we'll be able to apply those. So I'll just pass it around and start with Mildred, then go to Michael, then go to Jalinda, Brittany, and then we'll start closing it out.
I just like to leave the important words. Parents, plan for your child's future. Take them on a college campus. Have them to walk a college campus. Let them see a college campus. Take them to the bookstore. Read to them. Have them to keep a daily journal. Have them to write down what they did for that day. And take them shopping. Let them pick out the product. Have them to read what they like to eat. And if they want a box of cereal, if they can't say it and they can't read it, they shouldn't have it.
Wow, phenomenal information. I hope y'all hear that, community. We got to put those incentives into our kids' learning. Don't let them buy nothing if they can't read the name off it and know what it's all about. That's great information to give back. Go ahead, Brother Michael, jump in there.
What I want to say to parents, you are perfect as you are. There are all kinds of things that are happening in this world, having to work 2, 3, 4 jobs, sometimes out there struggling, all kinds of things happening. Sometimes your perfectedness is not known, but I want to tell you that you are perfect as you are. And if you can understand and get quiet and get away from all the trappings of the things that you have to do economically to try to cope and survive, you can tap into that perfectedness. And then that will allow you to be the one to advocate for your child. Your child needs you. You are the one that your child has been waiting for to help them become not just an adult, but to excel in this school thing. And I also want to say this before I close, is that you're not alone in this job, because a parent is not an educator in the sense that they've gone to school, they know about all these different ways of teaching, etc. See the school, find that person at the school, if it's just one teacher, an administrator, counselor, whatever the case may be, who can also be on your child's team. Build your team. You don't have to be the super person alone to make sure that your child succeeds. Build people on your team, and You are perfect the way you are, and we accept you for your perfectness. Thank you.
Wow, very, very powerful stuff. And please, community, reach out to Brother Michael, and we're going to learn a little bit more about these community schools. I think he has a powerful understanding of how they work. As we still challenge to fight the mental health, the brotherhood, the mentoring, because we need brothers like Michael. We need other males in the community to help with this mentorship and get our young people into the right spaces. So I appreciate the work you're doing, Michael. I'm definitely going to be reaching out to you as you come back into the school year. I definitely want to come up to MLK and try to see what I can do to help out and be a part of the movement of changing when we're talking about our young brothers that's impacted. And I know the communities that they come from that come to your school. So I definitely want to be a support, and maybe we could uplift and utilize our platform to come lift their voices, because I believe in recognition as well. And I think sometimes our young people don't get the recognition that they need. And I want to utilize my platform this year to give some of these kids who made, 100% change, or they just changed their paradigm, and doing things on the right track. And I want community to know who they are so we can community celebrate them and uplift them. But thank you, Mike, for the work you're doing with our young brothers and sisters over there. We appreciate you, and anything we can do to support you, I'm here to support what you're doing. Ms. Jalinda, come up here and give some words. We know you do everything, write books, do poetry, bless the people, work with those in need. Come and give some good words back to the community today.
Well, I want to speak to the youth, those who don't have parents. That's like myself. I'm former foster youth. So those who don't have parents are good guardians in their life. Believe in yourself. Know that you are amazing. And when you believe in yourself, other people will see that in you, and they will know that you're amazing too. So keep asking the right questions, keep going to the right people, and you will get what you need. But know in yourself that you are valuable, and that you are meaningful, and that you are a jewel in this world. So you just have to shine brightly. So again, believe in yourself and know that you are amazing.
Man, powerful. I always say I think we need to have more words of affirmation in our community. So thank you for giving it. I always think the way we uplift our community, especially our young people, is through positive affirmations, because we know our kids in some of these community, 80 to 90% of their day, they're hearing negativity from the rap music to stuff in the community. And we got to start moving some of that with positive affirmation information. So definitely thank you for that. Continue, community, to uplift our young people. Give them the praise, stroke their egos, and tell them, even when they read one little word that you think they should know, help support them, because I think every accomplishment needs to be celebrated on a level that's just phenomenal, above amazing. So yeah, we're gonna keep doing that here. But thank you for that. Miss Brittany, you want to go ahead and bless the people before we leave today?
Yes, I would like to close out with a call to action for the community. Just hearing everything that we've been talking about today, I'm hearing that there needs to be more engagement among the parents to encourage them to come out more and be engaged in the school. I'm hearing that there's a need for more technology in the school and education around technology to ensure that our kids are progressing and moving forward. I'm hearing that there needs to be more empathy when coming into our schools, whether it's among the teachers or engaging our schools. When we're engaging with students, we have to understand the students. And so empathy is very important. I'm also hearing that food is still an issue. So when we're hearing about like what sort of engagements we're needing in the school, there still needs to be services around food, housing, and behavioral health. And so those are things that we are still needing in the school. And then above all else, hearing from everybody, reading is fundamental. And so, working with our children and ensuring that they are on the right reading level, that's what I'm hearing. And so that's my call to action to the community in my summary for today. And I'm just very inspired by you all today. And I'm just so thankful that you came on the show to educate us.
Wow, phenomenal information. And that's why we have Miss Brittany here. I know this is her second week. She has Wise Health SF. She is doing phenomenal things, consulting, doing things to bring that health part of the conversation to community. And we just want to say thank you, Brittany, for all you do for community, engaging and collaborating with community and doing stuff. And we just appreciate having you here at both sides of the conversation to bring that different perspective, because, they call me one side of the conversation. They think I just I don't know. They call me one side of the conversation, but it's really both sides of the conversation. So we appreciate you, Brittany, for being a pillar of the community,
Thank
always
you.
willing to give back and support the people. And we're just blessed to have you. And thanks to all of our both sides of the conversation family team that are behind the scenes doing stuff to make these shows happen. It's a lot of work, community. And we still have opportunities for people that would like to volunteer and help and support. We have to support each other, right? We just try to make sure that these conversations are being heard, they're being talked about it. And we want to create that space where we could be who we are and we could change that narrative and talk from our voices what it really is. So I appreciate Michael, Jalinda, and Miss Mildred for coming on today, being authentic, being real, and just keeping it what it's really all about. And I can see from the response from our community how engaged the conversation was. And that's what it's all about, learning something new, learning something different, hearing a perspective that we might normally don't get in our community. But like Mike said, we got to lead with compassion and humility. And it's a lot of work that we still have to do to change this paradigm and change this narrative of our community. There are positive things happening. There are community schools that are working. We just have to be open to the change and trying new things. Sometimes in our community, we get stuck on what we know, what's comfortable. And I just appreciate you all just making us think outside the comfort zone. But this conversation is definitely about the community. It's about the family. You're hearing from some real powerful educators that are doing things to impact our community and families. So community, I hope you took something from this. And I know on August 8th, we're going to have the parents of the community come and talk about some of the things that they have concerns about, some of their issues and concerns. And I'm hoping that some of you all will be able to watch on our YouTube or our Facebook to come give some feedback and talk to some of the things that our parents are going to be asking. It should be a phenomenal show as well. But again, this is what both sides of the conversation is about, having that healthy dialogue, looking at things from different lenses, being able to get a different understanding. And hopefully we can use that to start making that healing process that we need in our community. Because here we believe that the process of healing begins with communication. And these conversations are definitely help heal our community with the intentional information and bringing community together and awareness. So that's what we're going to keep doing here as we bless the community week in, week out with our 3 shows a week. We'll be seeing you all this Tuesday as we will have another Hidden Gem segment where we continue to uplift our Black and brown businesses and support them. We want community to go out and patronize our Black and brown businesses as much as you can. And then every Thursday, like Mike said, we will be intentionally educating our community, giving them the sauce, the information that they need that sometimes our community don't get, from financial literacy, mental health, to all type of things that we've been giving out. Go back to our YouTube, follow some of those conversations and see some of the work that we're doing to help impact our community. And then next Sunday, or is it August 1st, we're going to be talking with our young people for the Black STEM. And then August 1st, we'll be talking with the staff at our San Francisco Juvenile Hall. We can kind of get some of the information and some of the things that they're dealing with some of the kids in our community that might not get it, working with them. And we'll have a phenomenal conversation with them as well. So with that being said, thank everybody for tuning in today. Looking forward for the next live show this Tuesday. Please join us, support us, and we'll continue to support you in community. And we really appreciate this conversation today with all you educators. Continue to do greatness. They say to make change, you have to be the change. And we know everyone on here today is being a change to impact our community. So thank you. Everybody be safe out there. We know it's been a violent weekend in our area. Be safe while we're driving on these highways. Be safe coming in and out of these malls. People pay attention, no texting and walking. And let's just do our part. Be the change. Love everybody. See you next Tuesday.